أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا الحسين سيد الشهداء عليه الصلاة والسلام. My deepest and most sincere of condolences to every single one of you on the shahada and martyrdom of the Aziz of Fatima, Sayyid al-Shahada alayhi salatu wassalam, on the Sham Ghariban. Let us recite our loudest and most sincere of salawat in the honor of Imam of Time, Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ajjalallah ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Also let us include the souls of all of the marhumin and marhumat, those who are desperately looking down to be part of the majalis of Imam al-Hussein, so that inshallah Allah will extend the sawab to their souls as well by reciting your third salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And last but not least, let's remember all of those individuals who helped out, whether being sponsors or volunteer or just being a simple audience going according to the etiquettes of the Majlis of Imam al-Hussein, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept all of their deeds and inshallah extend their tawfiqat and barakat in this world and the next by reciting your fourth salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty to be able to recite the name of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam on the day of Ashura, on the afternoon of Ashura, and on the 11th night of the Muharram, known as the Sham Ghariban. So as you all know, I'm sure most of you may be already tired from all of the programs that has been happening from morning all the way till now. But bear with me for a little bit, as inshallah I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Try to get to the point without all of the extra set of information. So when it comes to the day of Ashura, as it was mentioned in the morning majlis, we should not be looking at it as the end of the majalis. Okay, we came to the majlis, we did commemoration, we did mourning. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we were able to cry for Imam al-Hussein. We gained that sense of forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. So now we're going to go back and we're going to start the very same way that we were living before. No, the movement of Imam al-Hussein is something that's supposed to take over our entire life. Sometimes some of the scholars, they mention this one. They're like, if you look closely to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed this love of Hussein for every single person, not only Muslimin and Muslimat, not only Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, but literally to every single person, you'll be amazed. How so? They give examples. They say, take a look of the number one musibah that gets usually recited for Imam al-Hussein. It's the musibah of thirst, musibah that is related to water. The very same water that every single human being, animals, birds, plants, everything we see within this world benefits from. The very same water which consists perhaps 2/3 of our like mass volume. So it becomes by innate nature, it becomes part of those fitriyat, as we say, that when we talk about thirst, every single person understand the Masa'ib. It's not only for mu'mineen and mu'minat. And it is something that we needed on a daily basis. It's not something that we only talk about it perhaps on the 10 days of Muharram. No, every time we get thirsty, in the middle of the night, middle of the day, after going to school, after going to work, every moment that we get thirsty, if that water is not provided for like a couple of minutes, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, how are we going to be feeling? That's the connection to Imam al-Hussein. That's one. Number two, which is more even unique, and perhaps more so it relates to me and you, and inshallah the true mu'mineen and mu'minat, it is the turbat of Sayyid al-Shahada alayhi salatu wassalam. Now when I say turbat, I don't mean only the one from the grave of Imam al-Hussein, no. Even the one that comes from outside of the Hayr of Husseini, the one that comes from the land of Karbala, the very same turbats that we see even at this center. So what's so unique about it? Take a look at all of the recommendation that we have in the ahadith. Not only we're supposed to, or it's recommended highly to do sajda on the turbat of Sayyid al-Shahada, how many times a day? At least 5 times a day, yes? At the same time, we have this ahadith in which it teaches us to even open basically the taste of an infant, a newborn, with the turba. Meaning the very first thing they taste in this world will be the turbat of Sayyid al-Shahada. Throughout the life, they will be constantly praying on the turbat of Sayyid al-Shahada for 5 times. Even at the end, one of the adab, one of the etiquettes for the deceased person is to place turba in front of him when we place him in the grave. From day 1 all the way to the last day. Constantly linked to the turbat of Sayyid al-Shahada alayhi salatu wassalam. Meaning that our life is not something that can be separated from the love of Imam al-Hussein, and that's out of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He constantly puts the signs for us to make sure that we constantly keep ourselves intact with Imam al-Hussein. Not to forget about him, not to minimize him to the month of Muharram and Safar, right? So this is the beauty of this system. And what's one of the finale of lessons that inshallah we'll try to wrap a discussion about the principles of a Husseini lifestyle is the very same title that was given to Imam al-Hussein's way of death after going through so many of Masa'ib. They say Imam al-Hussein was not literally killed, but rather he became shaheed by the death known as a patience. They call it marg sabr. The death that is caused by being patient and patient and patient and patient and patient. What's the definition of patient? To have this self-control. Against what? Against different things, which results in different aspects of patience. For example, I may control myself when I get angry. Yes? So that's one type of it. I may control myself when I have these desires. That's another type. I may control myself, for example, when I want something so bad. At the same time, for example, the religion tells me that's haram. That becomes one type of it. I may control myself towards even the long wishes that I have. That becomes part of it. The most commonly referred to is to have patience when we are facing with difficulties in life. Whether it be sickness, whether it be losing of money, wealth, status, income, whether it be to losing a loved one or a beloved ones, whether to losing whatever it's dear to us, what we refer to as bala. As I mentioned, bala is not something only for a specific group of people. I think about a couple of months ago we had this discussion with one of my colleagues, and he was mentioning a very interesting thing. He was saying recently there was a study done on a group of patients, a group of sick people, and they were trying to prove that God does not exist. So they brought these patients, about 10, 20 sick people. What did they do? They started recording a session. How they brought all of these mu'mineen and mu'minat, the ones who claim to be believers in God from different faiths. And they asked them, we have a group of sick people and you guys believe in God. Go ahead and pray for their cure and shifa. Yes? All on the camera. What do you think what was the result? They started praying, 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 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. What was the result? Majority of that 10 or 20 people passed away. They prayed, the sick people passed away. Hence, there is no God. Very simple argument, right? This very same argument, we use it on our daily lives. If I don't get what I want, I start questioning. Doesn't matter what age like I am. Like usually when we're younger, we may not think about it as much. We tend to forget. But as we get older, as we get set on our ways, it becomes more crystallized in our life. That, oh Allah, I have done this to you. How come the result that I'm expecting is not happening? Very same concept. They take it and they apply it for the view of atheists, right? Meaning the prayer that we have, the request that we have towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only one aspect of it. What Allah provides to us is the best of the best of the best of the best that actually fits us, fits our capabilities, fits our capacity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again is Arhamur Rahimin. He does not give what we want, He gives what we truly deserve to have and what is actually the best option for us. But in order to recognize that one, we need to have that concentration. We need to have that contemplation. We need to have that focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And usually in the long run, it shows itself. Which brings up the topic of being patient at any given stance of life. As we have it in the hadith, for every person who receives a bala, who receives a test, who receives a difficulty in life, there is a follow-up bala right after it, which is more and greater in terms of the pain and difficulties. So you get hit with one strike, right? It's being followed up with the second strike, which is even greater in terms of the amount of effect that will have on your life. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is waiting? He's waiting to see our actions. If we be patient with the first bala, if we be patient with the first problem, Allah removes the second problem. But most cases, we would not be patient. So what happens? The second bala hits, the third bala hits, the fourth, and keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Until when? Until finally the servant or the slave, the abd, finds himself or herself in a position of giving up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Allah is constantly providing. The look of it, maybe it looked like evil. Maybe it looked like, for example, something bad, something that we tend to run away from. But the reality of it, no, Allah is constantly providing and providing and providing for what? For that one moment of awareness, for that one moment of awakening, that everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He's the one in charge. The topic of Tawheed, monotheism, right? But practical way, not only theory, not only memorizing like reasoning, not only talking about statements. That's needed. Again, it's not enough. It's needed to practice it. If you don't practice it, it's just in the back of our mind, right? الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. This yu'minun, right, talks about continuation. It's not just to say, okay, I will have faith when it comes to the Islamic studies class. The minute I walk out, everything goes back to how I feel, what I want, what I desire for. As long as I'm in the majlis of Imam al-Hussein, all I think is towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah. The minute I walk out, it comes back the very same thing. My own set of preferences, what I want, what I like to do. Yes? So as we reached the end of the majalis, and how fast it went by, we can make this, inshallah, promise to ourselves. This month of Muharram, remember on the first day we made one promise. To change something within our life so that the way we live, inshallah, will get closer to the lifestyle of Sayyid al-Shuhada or the Ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada. What was the purpose? Getting closer and closer, inshallah, to our Imam of Time. Once again, Imam of Time is present everywhere. As the famous narration that most of, or perhaps some of the speakers, they use this one. They say the eye that opens up in the morning and does not seize his Imam of Time, that eye is blind. Physically looks fine. He's not wearing glasses or anything. He sees everything physically. But the eye that opens up every morning and does not see his Imam of Time, that eye is blind. Why so? It's blind with the desires of the dunya. It's blind with the mundane world. It's blind with only what we see right in front of us. يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. They know only a piece of the look of the dunya. What is the surface, or like the surface point aspect of the dunya. وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ غَافِلُونَ. And they tend to neglect about what is in the hereafter. When akhirah وَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ. When the akhirat is the live, like dynamic, if you want to say, is that where provides all of the sources that we need. We tend to focus on what's in front of us. So this change, inshallah, can take us where we can constantly see ourselves on the path of gaining more and more and more of this sense of awareness. Opposite of the ghafla. And ghafla, mashallah, within the communities that we have, I would say it's the number one issue that we have. Constantly being at the stage of ignorance or negligence, if you want to say. Not intentionally, a lot of times unintentionally. So we need those setbacks. We need those, like, wake-up calls. We need those helps. We need those external and internal. Internal, obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided so many things as an obligatory act, plus the mustahabbat. But usually we don't talk about mustahabbat. On obligatory acts, we do it as a bare minimum possible. How many minutes does it take for our prayers? The 5 daily prayers, right? Morning prayer, probably about 30 seconds. The Zohr and Asr, maybe 2 minutes, right? Maghrib Isha, 2 minutes. Plus some ta'aqibat, maximum 10 minutes per day. How many minutes do we spend on social media? How many minutes do we spend watching movies? How many minutes do we spend constantly talking and socializing about the items, the subjects that has absolutely no benefits for us? These all becomes the examples of lahb, right? Or sometimes even la'ib, if you want to give it a little bit more. Like how much time do we spend playing games on our cell phones, mashallah? It's not only this community, it's everywhere. Again, it's something common. And that's one of the biggest sign of the end times. Constantly being at the stage of negligence. Being drowned by the beauties and adornments of the mundane world. Constant of change, constant of gaining the attention or the focus that we have. At the same time, what is being spent? The one-time use, capital, or if you say investment, whatever you want to refer to, the one-time use blessing that we have, which is our life. What are we supposed to gain in return? And what are we gaining in return in reality? That's the question that, inshallah, we have to clear ourselves with the result of this question when it comes to commemoration for Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein, the Ashab, the Sayyid al-Shahada, Hazrat Abbas, all of them, mashallah, where they at right now? Status of the heaven that they have, the hadith that you have on the side of the majlis. As Imam al-Baghr, Imam al-Sadiq talks about Hazrat Abbas, says in the hereafter, Hazrat Abbas has this position in the heaven that all other shuhada, they start envying him, seeing the status that he has. So he already, mashallah. So why do we cry for them? Our cries is not going to help them, right? It's a pathway for us. What is that pathway? That awakening call. That awakening call, we have to keep it in awakening stage. Not to let it go back to the sleep again. Not to let it go back to the sleep mode again. Day of Ashura, when you look at the deeds, number one thing that constantly been mentioned, and you can find it in Mafatih al-Janan as well, that do not plan anything for your dunyavi matters, for your worldly matters on the day of Ashura. One aspect is the blessing and the barakat, right? We usually talk about. The other aspect is okay, if I'm not spending my time on the worldly matters, what am I supposed to be spending my time on? The matam of Imam al-Hussein, maybe 1 hour. Commemoration, maybe 1 hour. Amal, maybe a couple hours. What am I supposed to be doing on this day? Constantly emptying your mind and trying to make that connection with Imam al-Hussein, right? As if the blessings of Allah is constantly being showered on the very same day But then again, we tend to find excuses to run away from it. How else Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can provide for us? The story of Nabi Rasulullah and how he smiled when they had the prisoners of war, including his own uncle. As they're taking the prisoners of war in chain and custody in the city of Medina, Nabi Rasulullah looks at them, he smiles. His uncle Abbas, he becomes a little bit offended. It's like, you're looking at us in chain and you're smiling at us? He takes it the wrong way. What does Nabi Rasulullah respond? He's the Nabi al-Rahmah. We have to understand this part. He says, I'm smiling because I see a group of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dragging them by force towards heaven, yet again they don't want to go along. Yet again they don't want to go along. Right? The sense of what we understand and what the reality is trying to provide for us. Closely tied with the topic of patience. How to have patience, the different stages of patience. Patience when we face difficulties, patience or endurance for the acts of obedience, for the wajibat and muharramat, and patience towards controlling ourselves for sinful conduct. At least the three basic level of patience. Now, higher form of patience is what we see in the tragedy of Karbala. Is what we see within the Ashab in a smaller portion, within the Bani Hashim almost to perfection, and the perfect example of it would be Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Again, when you start counting the masa'ib, it will never finish. You take one of those masa'ib and you try to apply it in our own personal life, there is no end to it. Look at it from different aspects. Read the maqatil. Try to list all of the masa'ib. You keep on coming up with new ones. You keep on adding to it. Because every single action has so many different aspects to it. And from different aspects, it has different pain upon the one who's observing it or who's going through it. So there's no end. But a single term from Imam al-Hussein saying, oh Allah, why me? The very last moments. Razan bi razak. Oh Allah, I'm content with your contentment. Whatever you have chosen for me. We may refer to it as the stage of taslim, but before taslim, this patient has to be there at the perfect level to lead to that stage of taslim. Right? So Masa'ib of Sayyid al-Shahada, one of a kind. Remembering the Masa'ib of Sayyid al-Shahada opens up this path. For what? For me and you, inshallah, so that we can sympathize with Imam al-Hussein. In what way? Not only to commemorate, but inshallah to be able to understand what Imam al-Hussein is trying to invite us towards. Right? Not only Imam al-Hussein, inshallah, the Imam of time as well. When Imam comes, when he, inshallah, has the zuhur, what's the logo on his banner? What's the logo on his flag? Ya la tharat al-Hussein. So even Imam of time, he comes and he again goes back to the very same pathway of Abu Abdullah Hussein, which is what? The pathway of being aware, having that sense of intellect, avoiding that jahiliyyah, avoiding that ignorance, avoiding that ghafla, avoiding that sense of negligence. So do we have to wait until, inshallah, the time of dhuhr? Or no, we're supposed to work on it at this very same moment. That becomes our duty. I have to make sure myself, my family, my brothers, my sisters, my community, right? Personal and social. We try to do something that we would keep this awareness within us. Create that culture, right? In order that, and that's the true meaning of getting close to the Imam of time. It's not only prayers. We have to set the stage right in terms of the actions. One of the brother, mashallah, he mentioned a very good point. He said, oh Shaykh, make it one simple prayer that inshallah our community will set the ground ready for the appearance of Imam of time. Inshallah. But is it only by praying, or we have to see it in actions? How can we see it in actions? When the community becomes number one community of a faithful of believers of mu'mineen and mu'minat. There are criterions for it, right? When you look at the community, when you see the criterions, for example, number one, you see more of sincerity, more of the ikhlas. It's not always like, give and take. Some of the communities you go, it's all about, if I do this, what will I get in return? And not only at that stage, but mashallah, they calculate so many years down the line. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, Allah provides. No, when we talk about a community which is trying to get close to the Imam of time, very first thing that rises is sincerity. Second thing is truth and honesty, right? It's not, I'm not going to say it's going to be a perfect community in terms of the problems. It has no problems. No, it's actually the opposite. They may have the most amount of problems because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He likes someone, He gives them bala. We're not going to be any better than Imam al-Hussein, right? The more Allah likes someone, the more of the bala, because the bala is elevating him or her. So that's part of the deal. But the criterions which identifies and distinguishes a healthy community from the other ones, a healthy family from other ones, a healthy self, as I mentioned I think a couple nights ago, turning this finger back towards ourselves. Start with ourselves, the community will become better as well, inshallah. Start with ourselves, the family will become better, inshallah. So inshallah we can learn from Imam al-Hussein and the ashab of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the last night of the program. Now, let's go to the land of Karbala, as it is the Sham Ghariban of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And inshallah we can see ourselves among all of the women and children at this time, perhaps a little bit earlier, when Aziza Fatima took the stage to the battlefield, when he went to the Godal of Qatlegah, when all of those attacks started happening on Sayyid al-Shahada from every angle. Whoever and whatever they had, they used it to get it to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in one way or another. Finally, when Sayyida Zainab goes on the Tall Zainabiyya, she looks down. What does she see? Allahu Alam. She shouts out, Ama fikum Muslim. Isn't there any Muslim upon you? Then comes that mal'oon. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein feels the pain on his chest. He opens his beautiful eyes. وَالشَّمْرَ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِهِ. As if all of this has already passed. They have raised the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on top of the spear. Now what are they going to do? They start attacking the body of Imam al-Hussein in a way that the history of mankind has never and yet to see similar attack. In what way? One attacks, takes away the amama of Imam al-Hussein. Another one attacks, takes the helmet of Imam al-Hussein. The third one attacks, takes the sword. Another one removes the shirt of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Another one runs after the shoes and the na'alain, the sandals of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Three of them start competing one another, racing one another, beating one another to get their hand on the dagger and other small weapons of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Another one reaches up Imam al-Hussein at the later time. He looks down, up and down from the body of Imam al-Hussein. He cannot find anything to take. What does he spot? He spots a ring on the finger of Imam al-Hussein. But because in such a haste and such a rush, he doesn't go and remove the ring from the finger. He takes out his dagger, he hits it down on the finger of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, taking the finger with the ring with him as a trophy of war. These are the people that we are facing with. When they finish up with Imam al-Hussein, now their intention gets focused and gets changed back towards where? Towards the Khaymegah. Now comes the looting part of Karbala. As Imam al-Sajjad describes this, one of the worst time of the tragedy of Ashura was at this moment when there was absolutely no way to prevent all of these animals from attacking the Khaymegah of Abu Abdullah and all of these women and children of Imam al-Hussein. So they start charging against the Khaymegah. As all of the women and children, they get close to each other in one khayma. Sayyida Zainab keeps on telling them, take one, remove whatever jewelry that you have, put them on the side and push it outside of the khayma so that they would not attack us. So they immediately remove everything that they have, except for some small pieces here and there because there is not much time. How much would be a time from Godal of Qatlegah to Khaymegah on horses? So they start attacking and looting the Khaymegah of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. from different angles, from different ways, from different positions. They take whatever they can lay their hands on, to the point that they say they even removed the rug from underneath Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam, where Imam falls down on the ground of Karbala. Not only that, they even go after the rope in which they were tying up the tent with it, and they take that rope as their trophy of war. Not only that, someone shouts out, "Ahriqu khiyam al-zalimin," set fire on the tents of the oppressors. They start releasing arrows with fire towards the Khaymegah. They set all of the tents on fire. Now the women and children have the maximum amount of stress. Which way to go? On the backside, there is a trench. They cannot run to the backside. In front, there are these enemies of Ahlul Bayt, which absolutely have no mercy. On the right side, if they go, there's closer towards the Farat, they have another line of guards facing, the Ahlul Bayt. So which way can they run? They go to Imam al-Sajjad. Imam al-Sajjad says, "Alaykunna bil farar." Run as fast as you can, any direction that you can. Which way can they run? All of the women, all of the children, so many little ones, they don't know which way to go. Everybody starts to run in one direction. They say Sayyida Zainab kept on running out from the khayma and going back inside the khayma one more time. Kept on coming out and going back inside. Kept on coming out and going back inside. So Kulthum goes and says, "Sayyida Zainab, why aren't you running?" She says, "I want to run, but the khayma is set on fire." Imam al-Sajjad is laying there on that khayma. It is soon that the khayma will collapse on the remaining of my brother. So Kulthum comes, the Muharram come, they go inside of the khayma. They place Imam al-Sajjad on a piece of cloth. They start dragging the body of Imam al-Sajjad outside of the khayma. As they pull out the body of Imam al-Sajjad, the khayma collapses down, continues to burn on the side of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. As if this is not enough, then we have different reports from different people on the very same night. One of them is Fatima bint al-Hussein. She says, "I was looking at this soldier who was constantly going after the women and children, hitting each one of them with the spear that he had, pushing them to the side and removing whatever piece of jewelry that they had. As I was looking at him and I was puzzled with his action, he turned his face. He found me. He saw me. The next thing I know, I was running away. The next thing I know, I'm on the ground of Karbala with the face. And Sayyida Zainab is next to me. And is trying to wake me up and say, 'Fatima, wake up. Fatima, wake up. Now is not the time to get faint out.' I wake up and I notice the pain on my ears. I touch my ears and I realize that the earrings that I had was pulled away from my ears, leaving my ears all ripped to the pieces and blood." This is just one example. Another daughter says, as the guy has approached me and he was trying to remove the khalkhal from my feet, he was constantly crying. I looked at him, a little kid. "Why are you crying when you're removing a khalkhal, an anklet from my feet?" He says, "Well, because I want it so bad." So why are you crying? If I don't cry, if I don't take it away, somebody else will beat me to it. So I have to take this away with the maximum amount of force in the least amount of time. Otherwise, somebody else will beat me to it. As there were other reports that this actually happened. They start fighting one another for whatever remainings that they could find within all of these women and children, to the point that they say two of them were actually fighting over one piece of shoe from a single daughter of the Ahlul Bayt, to the point that they remove their daggers and they start fighting one another, trying to open up the laces of the shoes from the feet of this little one piece of the shoe. As I mentioned, they took everything that they could lay their hands on. Even they say the nails that they were used to hang up the tent of Imam al-Hussein on the land of Karbala, they even took that one. As if that is not enough, once the looting was finished, there came a shout, which I hope
and I hope that inshallah this report is not the correct one. What was the shout? What's the shout came? It's like once you're done with the Khaymegah, I remember specifically about a couple of hours ago, Sayyid al-Shuhada, he made a turn on the back side of the Khaymegah and he kneeled down, he used his sword, he dug this a small grave and he placed a very important infant inside of this grave. That's that side on the back side of the Khaymegah. Now you can imagine what happens between all of these soldiers hungry for the mundane world. They start charging towards the Khaymegah, trying to beat one another to who's going to get there first. As they get behind the Khaymegah, they cannot spot where the location of the grave is. So what would they do? They say they took out their spears, they put it like, upside down, facing the ground, and they start digging the ground step by step, inch by inch, inch by inch, hitting the ground of Karbala until the spear would hit something solid underneath the place of Karbala. At some point, apparently one of the spear hit something. He says, I found it. La ilaha illallah. They open up the grave. They remove the body of Ali al-Asghar. They separate the head of Ali al-Asghar. They place it on a spear as a trophy for themselves. I hope this report is wrong, but there is a report that backs it up. What is that report? They say once the head of Imam al-Hussein is sent to the majlis of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, when the first time the caravan goes there, as they have placed the head of Abu Abdullah on the golden tray, there is this little tiny head next to the head of Abu Abdullah. They say that's the very head of Ali al-Asghar on that day being set for the display. So inshallah this report is wrong. But my point, constantly attack on the women and children. Right now, alhamdulillah, we're sitting here. AC is working, AV is working, everything, alhamdulillah. But imagine the women and children. They could not even find a place to sit down. Everywhere they would go, they would get beat up. If they would go to the right, somebody would chase them. If they would go to the left, another one would chase them. If they try to get shelter within the khayma was on fire. Which way would they run? As they say, they were constantly scattered in the plains of Karbala. Sayyida Zainab, all alone, running after each one of those, one by one, trying to regroup and recollect them, to the point that they say by the midnight, when she wants to stand up for offering her Salatul Layl, due to so much weakness and lack of energy, she offers her Salatul Layl in a sitting position. Think how much she has been running around after these little ones and after the women of the caravan. As if that's not enough, they say finally, towards the sunset of the 11th night, they bring some water towards the caravan of Imam al-Hussein. Now it's beautiful how these little kids act. Some of them, they don't even accept the water. These are little kids we're talking. Some of them, they take the bowl of the water or the cup of the water and they start like throwing it on the plains of Karbala. Some of them, about 5 or 6 apparently, they take the glass of water, they start walking towards the Godal of Qatlaga. La ilaha illallah. So Sayyida Zainab keeps on running after all of them. When she starts to do the head count, she recognizes that a lot of them are gone, missing. Some of the kids, some of the women. So Kulthum comes to her assistance. They start searching around in the midnight in the desert. How much light would you have? As they look around the Khaymegah, finally they spot this sense of shadow on the plains of Karbala. They get close to. Sayyidah Kulthum says, oh sister, I have found the 2 that we are looking for. As they get close to pick up the bodies, they see the bodies have gone cold. They have embraced each other, and out of the fear and anxiety for the attack of the enemies, all been just given up on life on that very same moment on the plains of Karbala. So as they bring back the bodies, and how many of the bodies were trampled all there under the horses of these soldiers, Allahu Alam. They say Sayyida Zainab started to like dig in small graves to put all of these little bodies inside of the graves. So some of the women would say, Sayyida Zainab, you can wait till tomorrow. You know, the bodies of the kids, nobody's going to hurt them. Sayyida Zainab says, no, I'm afraid. If we wait a little bit longer, these guys may recognize that there are more heads, like, connected to the bodies, and they would come after the heads of the children as well, just to make sure they would get some of the more rewards in the day, on the next day. So they start making all of these graves. Once everything was done and said, in the middle of the night, there comes the cry of another woman. Sayyida Zainab starts to do the head count. Where does the cry comes? It's the sound of Sayyida Rubab, and she's crying. Sayyida Zainab goes to Sayyida Rubab. Oh, Sayyida Rubab, we talked about this, we have spent so much time calming down all of these kids and children. You're crying like this in the middle of the night. What's going on? Sayyida Rubab says, I'm talking to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Finally, when they gave me some water, I had the sense of having milk, but at the same time, no matter which way I look, I cannot find where Ali Asghar is buried. So I keep on asking Sayyid al-Shuhada to forgive me, to show me the way to Ali al-Asghar's grave. Sayyid Zainab starts to mourn with Sayyid al-Rubab. This is just some of the events that takes place on such a night, known as the Sham Ghariban. As if that all of this is not enough, they get the group ready to be moved. Before that, they say they send the head of Abu Abdullah Hussein on the very same night. The very first thing they did, they washed the head. Now the part has it that no matter how much they washed and dipped the head of Imam al-Hussein inside of the water, still people could sense the lips of Imam al-Hussein being dried as rock, no matter how much water they used to fix up the head of Imam al-Hussein. So they hand the head to Kholi and they send him to go back towards Dar al-Imara. Kholi starts running back towards Dar al-Imara. By the time he reaches the outside of Kufa, it's already dark and nighttime. He wants to get his prize on that instance. So he says, I'm going to wait the night at my house. In the early morning, I'm going to take the head of Abu Abdullah to Dar al-Imara. He takes the head back to his home. Then there are two reports of where he puts it. More likely he puts it inside of the tanur, where they actually bake and they act as an oven. They bake bread with it. He places the head of Imam al-Hussein in the tanur. He puts the lid over it. Then it's a couple of minutes later, the wife comes home. As she walks in, she senses a difference in the home environment. She keeps on asking, what have you brought home, Kholi? What have you brought home today? There is something different about the house. She keeps on looking around. She sensed the light of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. She says, I saw this light coming out from the tanur of our house, going to the sky, that it was like an unlimited amount of light and brightness. So she starts asking her husband, what have you brought to my home? He says, I have brought you the best of the best. I have brought you the head of the Aziz of Fatima. She shouts out, she says, woe upon you. People bring gold and silver to their homes, and you bring the head of the son of Rasulullah to my home? Me and you, no more wife and husband. She walks out from the house. Just one more example. They say on this night, as they group all of these women and children, as they get them ready to go on the next morning, when they put them up on the camels and the rides, when it comes to the turn of Imam al-Sajjad, the first time they place him on the camel without a saddle, Imam's body falls down because he's already chained with what they call a comprehensive chain, meaning both hands and legs and neck is been all connected with one chain. So they put him again on the camel, but the camel doesn't have anything on it, doesn't have a saddle, doesn't have a simple piece of cloth, nothing to hold on to. Imam al-Sajjad at a very sickening status. He falls down again one more time. Omar Asad says, chain him around the camel. They put Imam al-Sajjad on the camel. They start using the chain to connect the feet and the hands of the Imam from underneath the camel, while the neck of the Imam is hanged up to the chain of the hands and the body. So in a way that he can see only one direction. He's not even able to move his head that much. They place that camel in front of the caravan. Now they bring some of the women. They force them to get on the camels on the back of the caravan. They say they use one chain from Imam al-Sajjad all the way to the back of the caravan. But I ask you this chain goes at the height of a camel. At the same time, not everybody's riding a camel. Some of these little kids in the middle, they're walking on barefoot. They use the same chain to connect all of them. You can see what happens when they push the camels to go forward a little faster. It gets pulled on the chain, and how many of these little kids get hanged by their neck by this chain? This is again another musibah. But even worse, they want to make sure they remember the tragedy of Ashura. This mal'unin, what do? They take the caravan from the side of the Qatlegah. Now comes the matter of saying farewell and Khuda Hafiz. It is our last majlis. Imagine on that night, on that morning, the morning of 11th day, Sayyida Zainab wants to say her farewell to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. The very first thing she says, if Allah gives me the choice, I will never leave your side, oh Abu Abdullah. The second thing she says as she lands on the plains of Karbala, as she picks up the body of Imam al-Hussein, as she picks and looks at the remaining of body of Imam al-Hussein, she says, Wa Muhammada, Haza Husaynun murammalun bid-dama. This is your Hussein whose body is all covered with blood. This is your Hussein without a head in his body. This is your Hussein whose head has been separated from his body, from the back of his neck. This is your Hussein that you used to say, Hassan wal Hussein, Sayyida Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. Oh Rasulallah, this is your own grandson that you used to put on your shoulder. You used to kiss his lips. You used to kiss his chest. Oh Rasulallah, this is the very same Aziz of Fatima. As if like the name of Fatima, when it comes on the last majlis, it is usually to recite some masa'ib of the Bibi Fatima as well. So let's go back to the city of Medina. As if this was one farewell between Sayyida Zainab and Abu Abdullah. But let me tell you about another farewell in the alleys of Medina. In the middle of the night, Amir al-Mu'minin has ordered all of the Hassanain and Zainabain to mourn for their mother, but without their voices being heard. So each one is in a corner, crying, but not able to cry out loud. This is a blessing that we have right now. But Amir al-Mu'minin is doing the ghusl and kafan of Sayyida Fatima. Once he finishes up with the ghusl and kafan, he calls out the children, oh my loved one, come inside, say your farewell to your mother one last time. Beautiful as they walk in, Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba goes to the hand of Sayyida Fatima, holds on to the hand of the mother one last time. Oh mother, this is your Hassan. This is your firstborn. This is your dear Hassan. I'm talking to you, oh mother. How come you're not answering me? Abu Abdullah al-Hussein goes to the feet of Sayyida Fatima to Zahra. He placed the side of his face next to the feet of Sayyida Fatima to Zahra. Says, oh mother, this is your Hussein. This is your little Hussein. This is the Hussein that you would say you would stop me from crying no matter what. Oh mother, if you don't answer me, I'm going to start to cry. Oh. Then they come to Zainabain. Amir al-Mu'minin here, I'm not sure how he was supposed to control the four. They say he would like go and talk to Imam al-Hassan, gently and respectfully remove him from the body of Sayyida Fatima. By the time he would go to Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Hassan would come back to the body of Sayyida Fatima one more time. Imam removes Imam al-Hussein, Sayyida Zainab comes back in. He removes Sayyida Zainab, Kulthum comes back in. They keep on coming back to the body of Sayyida Fatima to the point that Amir al-Mu'minin puts his head on the wall and starts crying and mourning for Sayyida Fatima to Zahra so hard that his shoulder starts to shake. There comes a shout, oh Ali, remove the kids from the body of Sayyida Fatima, as if the soul of Sayyida Fatima is about to return to the body. But la yawmka yawmika ya Abu Abdullah. When Sayyida Zainab reaches down, lifts up the body of Imam al-Hussein. What a body that has been trampled by the horses to the point that the sound of breaking of the bones of the chest of Abu Abdullah could be heard. Picks up the body of Imam al-Hussein, the body that does not have a hand, the body that does not have a finger, the body that the legs are cut off, the body that does not have a head, the body that you cannot tell the difference from the front or back of it due to the trampling of the horses. She picks up the body of Abu Abdullah, shouts out one thing, Allahumma taqabbal hadha al-Ghariban. Oh Allah, accept this sacrifice from us. She reaches down and she leans down. One last farewell. There is no head in the body of Abu Abdullah. She places her lips on the cut off vein and dried veins of the neck of Abu Abdullah and says, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah.
وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن وعلى أولاد وعلى أصحاب One last time. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنصر واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره وشيعته اللهم ارحم أمواتنا واشف أمراضنا واجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. Oh Allah, will ask you on the right of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to hasten the appearance of Imam of Time and to put our name among his true companions. Oh Allah, will ask you to provide forgiveness upon all of us and to have mercy upon all of the marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, will ask you to provide cure and shifa for all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat who have come down with sicknesses. Oh Allah, answer the hawaij of the mu'mineen and mu'minat. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you on your mercy and on the right of Imam al-Hussein to accept this majalis from all of us and to extend the sawab of this majalis to the souls of maraji, ulama, shuhada and marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you on the right of Abu Abdullah to grant every single one of us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of his beautiful shrine and inshallah the benefit of the Ahlul Bayt in this world and the next. Oh Allah, will ask you on the right of Ali and al-Asqar to protect our family and children and to continue guiding us on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you humbly on the right of Imam al-Hussein to continue granting us more and more and more of the love and passion towards Ahlul Bayt every day, every hour, every minute and every second of our life. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.